taking part in this important event. The search for sources of clean and green energy is becoming ever more urgent and important as the supply of available energy from fossil fuels decreases and concerns increase over.
Thanks, and I'm going to touch on the financing and have begun because the financing is also a critical component. The best way that I have found in order to do and bring in new technologies is to use traditional technologies that are already there. Wind and solar is already there. If we now can blend wind energy and...
May I express to you my grateful thanks for the opportunity you have given me to come here to address this august audience. As the chief guest at this international conference on clean and green energy organized by the Institution of Engineering and Technology Sri Lanka Network. I also consider it's a great honor to be invited to address this conference as the keynote speaker. I offer my congratulations and good wishes to the organizers of this event. I am happy that IET has attained to its present eminent position by the hard work carried out by the officials and its entire membership. By an act of your own right, you have been acknowledged to be an institution of national importance. As a country, we have suffered in the past in some extent from our technical backwardness and national incoherence. I sincerely wish that your institution will help to remedy those defects in some measure. I am also of the opinion that we should not only spread our knowledge but also advance it for the benefit of our people. Once upon a time, we have accepted the fact that we are politically free but economically enslaved. But we now know we must get over from this economic enslavement by all means available to us. On the other hand, the physical obstacle to well-being of our citizens must be removed by our knowledge in science and technology. Therefore, I consider it is a timely and proactive decision for your institution to come up with an idea of having an international conference to deliberate on clean and green energy. One could question, why is it important for us to have clean and green energy as we are a negative carbon country? That is to say, we are absorbing more carbon dioxide than we produce. Our sinking capacity is much more than our emission capabilities. Dear friends, I have just returned from Rio Plus 20 summit held in Brazil, which so much of deliberation at intergovernmental levels, notwithstanding many obstacles put forward by various lobbies, especially the oil lobby, from different reasons, the outcome of the summit has been three main themes. Firstly, it was suggested by the all parties to phase out fossil fuel subsidies. There I would say this shall include any subsidy for nuclear energy as well. Secondly, it is suggested that there should be a surcharge or kind of tax on carbon emissions. Thirdly, and most importantly, the implementation of green economic policies from 2015. That means green cities, green vehicles, emission-free vehicles, green transportation, maybe sustainable urbanism, green ports, green banks, green commerce, green IT, etc. And there will be a kind of working group to formulate new set of proposals which will be implemented from 2015 called Sustainable Development Goals. Having said that, at the very outset, let me tell you what really green energy is. This is a common word used by everybody in the contemporary world, which is often misused by many. Everybody is talking about solar, wind, biomass, tidal, etc. I would say it's a source of energy which is replenishable, inexhaustible, and which will not pollute our natural environment. We know that fossil fuels are exhaustible, and this would be the future energy source of this planet and human civilization. Dear friends, as a country, the amount of carbon we produce is very much less in every aspect. It is now 600 kilograms per person, where the environmental permissible level is 2,100 kilograms per person. I am happy to say, when compared with per capita income, more than 2,000 US dollars countries, we are the lowest carbon emitting country in the world to produce 1 US dollars per capita in real terms. Therefore, we must be proud that we are the most carbon efficient country on GDP terms. But in the global context, it is an entirely different story. We all know the modern development paradigm has started nearly 200 years ago, was based on technological know-how and scientific advancement to yield maximum material benefits to our society at the expense of our environment. It was believed under this paradigm, economic and social development is only possible through technology and new inventions fueled by heavy dependency on usage of fossil fuels. So we called it fossil fuel era. To say it bluntly, we are a civilization sitting on a bubble of fossil fuel, and that bubble is definitely going to burst in the near future. During 1960s, people like Schumacher, a renowned economist, and engineer Rickover, who invented this nuclear-powered submarine, have stated that there's a limit to technological innovation, and the Club of Rome has, by its publication named The Limits to Growth in 1968, has identified 5 principal variables that govern the future world economy, namely pollution, resource depletion, food, population, and technology. And their model predicts that collapse of the world due to resource depletion and unsustainable development. According to this analysis, the world will face a severe scarcity of natural resources and global pollution. Dear friends, the conclusion of this synthesis is modern development paradigm based on fossil fuel will be collapsing in the 21st century. This is the 21st century. So we are now facing the problems that has been occurred because of this burning of fossil fuels. Even though they were not considered to be serious prediction by the world community, now are beginning to realize the potential danger lying ahead for all of us, that include all the living beings, including flora and fauna as well. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, that is IPCC, established by the UN, has identified the carbon budget for the whole century to avoid the disastrous consequences of environmental calamity, which might lead 6th great extinction of the living species on this planet. But as far per the recent data available, at the current rate, carbon budget that has been identified by the IPCC will be exhausted by 2030. That means you have to shut down all your coal plants by 2030 to avoid disastrous environmental calamity. That is irreversible. And oil will be exhausted by 2040, gas reserves by 2042, and coal reserves by 2057, which means doomsday is coming very soon. Let me tell you briefly about Japanese doomsday clock. As per the doomsday clock, if the time is between 1 to 3, it is good. If the time is between 3 to 6, it is not so good. If the time is 6 to 9, it is bad. And if the time is between 9 to 12, it is very bad. Now, especially after 2008, the time is about 9 past 33 minutes. And which is not a good indicator at all. This is not only the thinking pattern of scientists and like-minded people, but it's a general belief of the global community. Therefore, we must listen to the voice of the people before it is too late. But governments alone can't do this. As policymakers, scientists and engineers, we must educate our people the importance of clean and green energy, not for the sake of us, but also for the sake of future generations to come, as we as human beings has nowhere else to go. Therefore, we all must take urgent and meaningful actions to quickly reduce anthropogenic carbon emissions to zero. Dear friends, this is easier said than done. It is now more than 2 years since I took over power and energy portfolio. As the minister in charge of the subject, I can point out 2 major constraints to evacuate or absorb green energy. The first one is resource variability. This is to say we cannot use resource when we mostly need it. We call it dispatchability of energy source. The user has to follow the resource which is not practical in general context. The second most constraint is financial viability, which is the longer run will not be constrained if proper and levelized costs are applied. In a different perspective, we as government are struggling to shift to low carbon scenario. This is mainly due to our economic dependence and enslavement, as I mentioned at the very outset. On the other hand, there are societal, technical and political barriers to make matters worse for the government. So in the local context, what is the solution? It is well known that Sri Lanka has almost more than 4,000 megawatt of potential wind power, mostly concentrated in northwest coastal belt. But it is ironical that we can only tap about 260 to 650 megawatt of the potential energy till 2020 due to the technical constraints. To overcome this problem, I suggest we must focus on the following. First one, evaluation of data-related location and amount of overcome the intermittent problem. Second, development of machine to overcome the problems related to harmonics and backup storage. For example, concentrated solar thermal. Third one, study and analyze the demand side management, not the old concept of DMS, but to look for storing the energy with compressed air, production of hydrogen, production of ice near the coastal belt to cater the needs of the fishing folks, pump storage option in large hydro reservoirs, and desalination plant to cater the needs of the northeast people, etc. Fourth, we should also deliberate on the concept like smart grids. And finally, but not least, concept the integration of large power pools like European supergrid. The above solution might solve the problems of backup storage, which is related to the first constraints of resource variability. Let me now speak briefly about the second constraint, which is financial viability of the green energy projects. The argument put forward by many is that return on investment for such project is very low and it is difficult to find investors. Most of them request strong government intervention and promote such industries. The basic argument is the unit cost of production of green energy is far higher than cost of production of conventional firm energy unit. To make green energy more competitive, it is suggested that phasing out of fossil fuel subsidies and introducing carbon taxes and levies on emissions would eventually levelize the cost of production for each and every unit of renewable energy. This will make the green energy competitive during this decade. In Sri Lanka, this has already started to happen, and we are giving very competitive price for the renewable sources. It is noteworthy to mention that in our country, cost of renewable energy is well below the average cost of production of energy using fossil fuels. In conclusion, the biggest question is to get a good return on investment for renewable projects. For that reason, I say it is right time for global community to think about green investment bank for the world as well as for each country. Therefore, I sincerely wish you all as eminent engineers and academia will deliberate not only purely technical aspects of clean and green energy, but also social, economic, financial and political aspects as well, and come out with a concrete and practical set of proposals as a way forward for the consideration of the policymakers. I wish you all the success. I thank you.